I mean, your videos are great and everything, but more Bob skits. Yes, Bob brings the energy, the raw mechanical charisma pull. Where is Bob? Where is Bob, and what have you done with him?
Hello.
Holy crap, I think it's because I said his name 3 times. Hey Bob, how you been?
I've been fantastic. I started playing a new game now that I've become woke.
Really?
Yes, I'm sick of WoW and its unfinished cut content. Penis does not go good with a salad, and I'm tired of playing in a paid beta.
Okay, so what are you playing?
I am playing Star Citizen.
Oh yeah, I heard that was okay. Wait, what?
Yes, it's super fun. It's so much fun, unlike beta lands.
Isn't that game still in beta?
No, you imbecile. It's in alpha. It's really great. It's only $45 to get in, and you get a ship. And you should play. They still have ships in stock. So is 9.1 out yet?
No, not for a few months.
OMG, I'm going crazy.
Hey, it's Soul, and welcome back to Warcraft Weekly, the show that, according to my magic mirror, is the most chillinest of them all. It's a big, but not so big week, but let's get right down to it, starting with classic Burning Crusade. In a surprise move, Blizzard announced that the cost of cloning the character, that is, to pull your snapshotted character to Burning Crusade or Vanilla Era realms, had its price slashed from $35 to a mere $15. It's great news, unless you're that one person who's like, they only did it because we complained, do not give them any credit, rabble. What's funny is that many of the initial complaints about the price from people could be read as, since it's $35, that's totally crazy, I won't pay that, versus $15, that's totally reasonable, I'm gonna clone all 12 of my level 30 tunes. And now it's opine time. The cynic in me is leaning towards that direction actually, that psychologically, since a thing is cheaper, you're more inclined to spend even if you don't really need to. It's like if you need one office chair for your house and you find out the price just dropped so you decide to buy 2. Now you have 1 for each butt cheek. Or now you have a really comfortable dinner chair, I don't know, just like how I don't know how to do analogy jokes. But it's still good news to see what I predict is going to be the least utilized service among WoW Classic players. After all, it's limited to how many tunes are going to be part of the cloning service when the snapshots begin next week. It'll be a pretty interesting case study. Who's gonna go all in for Burning Crusade? Who's going to stay behind and grief lobies who get in their way? Those people hopefully won't be alone. Next week when the TBC prepatch drops and the cloning thing happens, a bunch of realms are going to be connected together. This is under the presumption that more people are going to be active in Burning Crusade as opposed to vanilla. It's kind of a no-brainer, but this seems a bit extreme. North American realms will be squished down to only 6 realms, while in Europe there will be only 3. The alternative would be a bunch of dead servers, which would be pretty depressing, but in Blizzard's statement, they also said that they'll continue to monitor and consider future connections in the future, meaning I was right? That's sort of weird. I was right that depending on Classic Realms' progress from expansion to expansion, Blizzard would connect realms for the sake of keeping the community thriving. But what do you think, fans or observers of Classic WoW? Do you think this is the right move for the sake of not feeling lonely, or should other solutions be considered? And how long do you think it'll be before Blizzard opts to create a new Classic Vanilla realm that starts at Phase 1 again? Do you think there's high enough demand to make at least 1? In a bit of weird news, Blizzard was facing backlash over a shirt, of all things, clearly demonstrating that Blizzard is such an evil company. Everything must be given the critical eye. Next week I expect an expose over the carpeting that they use on their campus and if that's woke enough. Anyway, the hubbub is over this shirt, and let's set up some context. The shirt was made for Blizzard employees for Pride Month. As we all know, it's a month to celebrate awareness and support for the LGBT community. Seems like employees wanted to share this with others, and apparently fans wanted this shirt too, so cut to now, this shirt is now available on the Blizzard Gear store. Critics are accusing the company of rainbow capitalism. I've never heard of that term until right now. And now, opinion. This is a company shirt made a year ago, and to be even more dry, it's a shirt given to employees for a public volunteer event that non-employees have said that they're willing to buy it. By contrast, this here is a volunteer shirt from a familiar gaming company. As a former employee of said company, I don't think I'd be interested in selling this to other people. In fact, I'm embarrassed to wear it outside my house, and I would laugh if it ended up on some store because some people asked for it. Yeah, right. It's a shirt people wanted to buy. Nothing more than that. I mean, yeah, it'd be nice if Blizzard were to once again let all the proceeds of selling this shirt go to the Trevor Project or other supporting organization, but that's almost the same thing as saying, I'm willing to only donate if I get something in exchange. I do not see the shirt selling as rainbow capitalism. I see the response to it as desperate vitriol. And damn, that shirt's way too expensive, even with the free shipping. Sorry, I'm gonna wait till it's, they do that 40% off thing. And on to the next thing. This week, another PTR build was lowered down to us like fresh meat being thrown into a pit full of wolves, but I'm a little bit mixed. Another massive chunk of content was finally made testable, Tazavesh, the Veiled Market. It's kind of weird to have a city floating in the middle of nowhere, but still, I'm looking forward to run it because I didn't spoil myself. Ho, ho, ho. But with this, most of the major features of patch 9.1, Korthia, the Maw, and Torghast 2.0, the Sanctum of Domination, and Tazavesh are now available for testing. I've said throughout the last few videos in my 9.1 coverage that the more casual and solo content is really shaping up to be a strong delivery of stuff to do and rewards to get. Of course, I said that about Shadowlands 9.0, but I didn't realize how low the bar was set when it came to power progression. It's been interesting observing how the higher end community found Titan Forging to be super chaotic, while players outside the big three were like, well, it's better than nothing, because in Shadowlands, they got nothing, and that felt pretty bad. But what about the big three? What about the people who do organized PvP and raids and dungeon stuff? How's the patch looking for them so far? That's going to be what the rest of today's weekly is all about. Not exactly a deep dive, but just as close of a look as we can get away with. Even if this might sail over some heads, it's worth listening to this part too, because hey, their happiness matters too. I mean, do you want more rage thumbnails to infect your YouTube feed? Yes? Oh. Okay. In so few words, the state of the big three is still unknown for a few reasons. One, because everything matters a little bit more. For example, ability and balance tuning matters for everyone, but it matters for them more because it translates into how they navigate through the social experience, also known as Raider IO and Warcraft logs. It sucks when your spec doesn't get chosen for a group, not because your spec isn't great, but because the internet successfully memed your spec into something no one takes seriously, like Tiger Spec. Oh, I meant to say Feral. No one's gonna notice, no one plays Feral anyway. That's something that won't really blossom until we're at the final stages of a test cycle, and that's when you can start seeing the outcry over how my class was literally deleted, or has somehow become the literal god, or somewhere in between. And two, there's just still a lot that we don't know and we can't test. We still don't exactly know what the mythical fix is, and how it works is going to be a big deal. Prideful felt fun, but at certain key levels, it also set up a meta of what to pull and in what order, which put a lot of pressure on whoever it was that's directing the run. Point being is that the seasonal affix, like the regular affixes, has a massive effect on player behavior, and we've learned that if there's an opportunity for players to avoid or resist challenge, oftentimes they will take it. In a bit of good news for big three players though, it looks like Torghast is capable of rewarding sockets and conduit upgrades if you clear the adamant vaults. Of course, to do that, you need to be good at Torghast and complete flawless runs to access said vaults. However, this provides an alternate path to obtaining these items, the other path being through a lot of farming in Korthia. My opinion, I find this path to be more optimal because the trending thought is that these players will be running Torghast on a weekly basis and will get these items sooner. But as a tip, given that these have a carry limit of 1, you'll just want to sit on these until the time is right. There's one feature that I can at least speak more on, even if I can't test it directly, so keep in mind that everything is going to change before it goes live. I'm just sharing what we know and giving some opinions on how it's going to affect player behavior. Domination shards are supposed to be a raid thing, and we've learned a few things thanks to the dev Q&A between Sloot and Morgan Day. It starts with gear. Certain pieces of gear in the upcoming raid will have sockets, and these sockets are guaranteed. You can see them in the dungeon journal. Hands, wrists, and shoulder pieces have 1 socket. Helmets and chest pieces have 2, and Sylvanas' loot table includes gear that adds a bonus socket. So depending on your armor type, you might see shoulders with 2 sockets or a chest piece with 3. Also keep in mind that these sockets don't affect the item level budget at all. There's no scenario where you're like, I got the gloves with the sockets, woe is me. According to the PTR, there are enough slots for a player to have up to 8 Shards of Domination equipped, but in the Q&A, Morgan Day said 5, so there might be an equip limit with respect to the fact that we'll be wrangling with legendary gear as well. There are 9 total shards that we know of that are separated into Unholy, Frost, and Blood variants, and from there there's a Healing, Survival, and Damage shard. These effects work game-wide, and as they look right now, they're okay, you know? They have some fun effects, but it's nothing to scream
massively overpowered.
Nah, it's not quite there. Last week we learned of this Runic Dominion buff that pretty much tells you that using 3 shards of the same type grant an additional bonus, which I'm going to guess is way cooler than these effects on their own. That is going to be what makes raid gear best in raids, and it just so happens this works in the Maw, and Korthia, and Torghast too. Okay, that's cool, but how cool? Well, according to this data mine tooltip, it'll simulate to a 5% throughput and 3% health buff to start. Obviously, it's going to get dolled up into something that feels flashy and cool. Knowing this, and after learning that the shard effects work everywhere, here is what players are likely to do. Under the assumption that we'll only be able to equip 5 total shards, players will be looking to complete a set for the sake of that Dominion buff, and then use the remaining 2 slots for shards that are most relevant to their spec. So for me, as a paladin tank, I'm going to get the other survival shards to increase my speed and incoming healing. Maybe. Keep in mind, these shards are unique equipped, and you can only slot 1 of each. That's about all we know so far. I remember earlier iterations had these shards getting stronger and evolving over time, which still might be a thing, but I think that'll be limited to the set bonus and not the shard's effects. Going that path means that these effects can serve as a gradual nerf to the instance and other content. You may remember mentioning that the targeted nerfs to Castle Nathria may not have been necessary if there was a gradual thing in place to nerf it. Think of the Concordance of Legionfall in Legion. Think of Titan Forging, think of the legendary Cloak of the Cheesecake, whatever the heck it was called. This is going to have further effects on player behavior because these are sockets on multiple pieces of gear. Raiders will value this domination socket gear over PvP and dungeon gear, as well as the gear found in Korthia, sliding these players further into the raiding path as the primary source of gearing, while other activities will help to supplement, fill holes, and all that stuff. The higher number of available sockets gives flexibility for people who do a little bit of everything too. Not every slot that has a domination socket is an immediately locked slot. The TLDR from that? Special stuff from the raid for the raid. The question now is, where do these shards come from? Will they be a thing to power up, or will it just be a boss drop with its strength relative to what difficulty it dropped from? More importantly, are sockets permanent? Can we replace a socketed shard? Can we remove it and put it back in our inventory? A concern that I have would be if I play multiple specs, but it seems that this has already been thought through. Notice that completing a set needs all 3 of a shard type: healing, survival, and damage. Just a prediction, but I think that the set bonus might change depending on what your spec is. So for example, as a paladin tank, my set bonus is an HP bubble that refreshes every 20 seconds maybe, but let's say I switch to holy. Now I spawn a Valkyr that just stays there permanently, and it replicates a percentage of my healing. The point is, the shards that I use to get this bonus don't make any difference outside of it being the Unholy, Frost, or Blood. What will matter a bit is when you take this to PvP or dungeons, but given these current values, I don't quite see groups asking for domination shards, except for the intentional screenshots put on Twitter to make bad faith arguments. It's also fair to come at this with the usual greatest hits. Systems on systems, Blizz. Keep it simple, stupid. Stop trying to reinvent the wheel. Why make a thing that's going to live and die with this season? So opinion, it's the same reason why other critics, sometimes the same critics, will moan over how basically it's just another tier of the same old thing. It's so not innovative, uninspiring, literal copy paste. Alright gamers, alright, rise up, alright, rise up. We're going back to classic. And that's the show. You know how last week I was all, hey, send me your questions and I'll answer them, and I'll scour the internet for things to respond just because, you know, that'd be fun. But then I ended up responding to Asmongold's Twitter post from this past weekend. In it, he shared the greatest hits of what is wrong in the world of Warcraft. I said my own piece, and I talked with a lot of fellow fans and critics. And in the aftermath of all that, here are the takeaways and what I think I've learned. We're all just fans, just trying to be heard. The challenge is that what one group of people says or asks for comes at the cost of directly affecting another group of people who could be adversely affected. We have in a way created this zero-sum game of whoever is the loudest gets listened to, and being emotionally driven while doing it resonates with viewers and validates their own feelings, and it turns into this, well, cycle. And the best that I can do as a fellow content creator is not to try and silence these voices, even when those voices may try to silence me, but instead to see where the common ground is. One of the more taxing things to do as someone who reads feedback is to filter out what I call the noise, to peel away at the unchecked anger, the personal attacks, the conspiracy theories, the righteous indignation, the talking points that clearly aren't coming from the actual person, but once all of that is scrubbed away, you'd be surprised how much we'd be in agreement on. This week you might have seen a few videos of mine where I just gave plain ass feedback. I talked about Torghast and Korthia, what I liked and didn't like, and then I addressed some of the complaints that I and others have shared, and that's it. And unlike today's weekly, this was about content for everyone, not just the Mythic Raiders or the Keystone Masters, not just the Gladiators, but stuff that everyone can do. I've said that I'd be supporting producing content and feedback outside of the big three, and I'm going to keep doing it because everyone's got a vested interest in it. And I think that while there's enough coverage on how to do these things, there is not enough on how to improve on it. It's not my intention to be the voice for the so-called silent majority, but to inspire it to develop its own voice. In the meantime, I'm going to be doing what I do, commentary in the style and flavor that I find to be as honest and thoughtful as the next person's. So thank you for making it to the very end, and if you've been keeping up with all the coverage, humorous. And let me know in a comment below, are you starting to feel it? The slightest twinge of excitement for the patch? I know as I've been playing through and writing up bugs and giving feedback, I'm asking myself, do I want to play this? And certain elements like cracking skulls and Korthia, busting into the adamant vaults and flaunting my godlike domination power? And I'm thinking not hype, but more hope. So share your thoughts below, send your questions about whatever in Warcraft or about me, and I'll see what there is on that next week. And let's give a big hug to our Twitch subscribers and our patrons for being frickin' credible. A warm welcome to Tally and Omadon and to Brian, welcome to the fam. One more thanks to all of you, and we will see you next week when I talk about the Maw and what's truly changed, and about the Transmog Revolution. It's going to turn out to be like water on rock, but you can't blame me for trying. If you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel for lots of content, maybe signing up as a patron, but this costs you nothing. Hit that like button because you're good, and I'm out. Until next time, folks, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.
When it costs 15, you know the players will pay it. The data suggests it, and since it's 15, they'll buy more than when it's 35. Yes, cater them, coddle them, make them feel like they're empowered when they're just sheep. For 15.